Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are back with another Jurassic World Rebirth release. As you can see, we've got another of the Pop Funkos. This is the Titanosaurus, and this is a pretty cool one. Again, another of those instances where I feel like they should have given us this one in like a supersized version, just because it is the Titanosaurus, but nope, we get this little tiny version. Very strange the way that they've gone about this line so far, but you can see the packaging looks pretty fun. I also can see that this version here looks like color-wise a little better than the actual figure does. As we move over here, another shot there of what is the figure. Again, pretty much the same thing over here, except just the top of the head and the species name. And then here on the back, again, the Jurassic World Rebirth logo. So let's pop it open and check it out. So here is our little adorable Titanosaurus, and I will say again, even though it's a lot smaller than I would like, it is still pretty cool looking when it comes to a Pop Funko version. I think they did a decent job. If we bring it in, we start here in the head sculpt. You can see the head sculpt looks alright. We've got that kind of like lump on the head here. You can also see again, we've got the nostrils right there. We have the mouth sculpted in an open position. We can see the teeth, which are sculpted fairly decently and painted with a yellowish tone. The pink tongue is in there. We can kind of see sort of making an appearance, even though it's very dark. The eyes are just nothing but a black. It doesn't look so bad on the sauropod, though, I will say, because a lot of the time you see when people paint sauropods, they often get like the black eyes and stuff, and again, it doesn't look so possessed or unnatural. Of course, we've got seams galore like we usually do when it comes to Pop Funkos. There's also that light tone there on the head that disappears as you move back toward the neck, and again, we have a seam for the lower jaw as well as a seam basically where everything connects to the neck itself. As you lead back, you do have that sort of almost like small sail-like area, but it looks more like quills than anything here. We also have a sort of like an off-white or light grayish striping here that moves down along the neck. I like the way that these curve, though. That does look pretty cool, again, with the turn in the neck. Primarily, we do have like a brownish, sort of a gray tone for the primary body color. You can see the throat down here, which is a nice little addition. There is some okay texturing, but it's mostly just kind of creasing and stuff as you move through, but you can see the twist in the neck very nicely as the throat leads down. We also pick up some orangish tones as we move down into the throat, down into the chest, but they do disappear as you lead back. When we turn the figure, we take a look at the opposing side. Not only can you see the head sculpt, you can also see again the twist in the neck and how nice it looks. There's also some variation of color as you have like a darker gray sort of striping that picks up very briefly. I can't say that it's perfectly placed, but it looks okay, I guess, for what it is. Moving down into the body, again, you've got some okay looking skin texture throughout. You can also see that other area here, basically in the hip region of that kind of sail-like area. It looks more like just large ridges, though, on the Pop Funko version. Moving into the legs, you've got the musculature and everything nicely displayed. There also looks to be like a dry brushing. You can really see it here in the stomach of maybe a different shade of brown. And that does actually seem to move through the majority of the primary body of the figure, which is kind of cool. We can also see the claws are painted with a dark tone, kind of like a really dark gray, and that's on all 4 feet, which is nice. And then you lead out and you have a nice curve to the tail as you lead up with a striping effect out there at the end of the tail. Obviously, the proportions are all over the place when it comes to this figure. That's just the way the Pop Funkos work. Also, the tail doesn't really have much of any sort of texturing. It is very washed out and basically almost non-existent when it comes to texturing. There's a slight bit of it over here, but very little. And again, the seams throughout the course of the entire body are as obvious as they can possibly get, which is extremely, extremely common for Pop Funkos. So, as far as a size goes for this guy, for a length, you are looking at from the tail to the other side of those, whatever they are, ridge things. You can see at about 5 3/4 inches or around 14.5 centimeters. And then for a height, just a hair under 5 1/4 inches or a little bit over 13 centimeters. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Dilophosaurus, Robert Muldoon, and the Collect A human being next to our Pop Funko version of the Titanosaurus. And as you can see again, it's pretty much right there in the same similar size range as most other Pop Funkos. And for another comparison to show you that, We have the D-Rex from the Pop Funko line for Jurassic World Rebirth, which, as you can see, again, kind of similar in size, just very different as far as body mass and everything goes. But when it comes to the overall mass of the figure itself, you can see kind of in a similar size range. Obviously, though, a bit taller when it comes to the Titanosaurus. And then when it comes to a classic, we again have the Pop Funko Jurassic World T-Rex, which you can see again, obviously is going to be a little bit smaller, but for the most part, again, when it comes to what you would expect for a standard size Pop Funko, it's pretty close to pretty much the exact size you would expect. So I will say I'm definitely enjoying these Jurassic World Rebirth Pop Funkos. Again, for what they are, I think they're fairly nicely done. The sculpts, again, kind of replicate the dinosaurs that we see on screen, just not picture perfect and obviously very exaggerated as far as the style and appearance goes. But that's one of the main primary charms of the Pop Funko line, is they do have that exaggerated look, so I think that's okay. The paintwork of the figure as well is pretty okay for what it is. Again, when it comes to what I would expect for a Pop Funko version of the Titanosaurus, I think that's probably about as good as it can get, and even including a little extra paintwork as far as like the striping down the neck and, that dark gray striping at the bottom of the neck. Some of those areas, kind of impressed me as far as the actual application of the paint goes, but overall, there's nothing that's really going to blow your mind when it comes to the paint apps. The actual texturing of the figure, again, not really that great, but again, pretty much the standard when it comes to what you're used to when it comes to Pop Funko. The only thing that I'm not a big fan of on this one is just how insanely obvious the seams are, because sometimes Pop Funko's seams aren't that bad, but this one definitely has a whole lot of really obvious seams. Either way, though, it is worth picking up and adding to your collection, so if you are interested, I will include a link in the description to where I purchased mine, again, on the Pop Funko store. So check that out, grab it if you want it, and like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.